you remember from last time, we've got a rule in Dharma, right, which is try and be slightly dishonest along the way. So if I mention a great text, right, what you just do is you just kind of respond as if you were just reading it last night, like that, right? Let me try that again, okay? So Thucydides, right, in Peloponnesian Wars, go ahead. Yeah, totally. Guy's so hot. Right, like that. Okay, good. Right, so he's got this big idea, right? When words lose their meaning, culture collapses. So we don't know what I love you means anymore. So we need to know what it means, okay? So what we're going to kind of play with this evening is a sacred Dharma that's rooted in 4 places. It's rooted deep in Kashmir Shaivism, in the great teaching of Abhinavagupta, right? Kashmir Shaivism, which is kind of the great Hindu tradition, right? The teacher that came to America really before most of the people's time in this room, but actually shaped and reshaped America, brought Werner Erhard onto the scene that started the forum, was a gentleman named Muktananda, which means ecstasy of liberation. And Muktananda was a Kashmir Shaivite teacher, started something called Siddha Yoga. That's kind of that tradition. That's one major tradition. Okay, and I'm a big Kashmir Shaivite, practitioner, right? I'm madly in love with Kashmir Shaivism. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous tradition. The second place that this appears is in a book called the Zohar, which is the Hebrew book of kind of mystical, gorgeousness. The third place it appears is actually in Foucault's, postmodern metaphysics, right? He's got a similar intuition, which he kind of understands in a deep way, right? And the fourth place it appears is right here in the room, okay? And we're going to talk about what I want to call the 3 faces of love, okay? The 3 faces of love. So when we say we want to be an outrageous lover, it can mean something very different depending on the prism of which face I'm looking at. So love actually appears, discloses itself in 3 wildly different ways. Okay? Love appears in first person, love appears in second person, and love appears in third person. Those are what we call the 3 primordial perspectives. Ani, I, first person. Ata, you, second person. Hu, he, she, he, third person. Right now that sounds like one of the most singularly uninteresting pieces of information you could hear at this moment in your life, right? And I understand that, right? But let's play with it for a second, okay? So here we go, okay? Step 1. What is love in first person? Okay? And we're going to play with something here that's kind of wild. It's going to take us a few minutes, okay? Because we're going to take us a few minutes because we've got to do a little foreplay right before we get there, okay? Right? You can't just kind of jump in, okay? Foreplay's like he woke up. Foreplay's like right? Foreplay's a big idea, right? Right? And actually sacred study, dharmic study, the Zohar says, is about ultimate consummation. And the Zohar gives a gorgeous image. Of course, the Zohar is classically heterosexual, so it's always the image of a man, right, surrounding, a castle. There's a gorgeous woman in the castle, and he surrounds the castle, and everyone says she's not there, but he believes that she is, and he refuses to leave the castle, and he's there for 7 weeks, and it's about his whole story until she finally reveals kind of her pinky, and he's ecstatic. And the Zohar kind of gives this kind of gorgeous unfolding in Aramaic, and this is the description of sacred Dharma. So sacred Dharma is making love. That's what it is. It's entering to the inside of the inside, right, and actually birthing something new. So we're now just we're gonna play. We're just gonna kind of kiss a little bit now, okay? Just do a little kissing. You guys up for a little kissing? Is that good? Oh, okay, we're good. Yeah, awesome. Now here we go. So here's a sentence, okay? You are, we're going to start with love in first person. You are a unique incarnation of the love intelligence and love beauty that initiated the cosmos. You are an irreducibly unique and personal incarnation of the love beauty and love intelligence that initiated the cosmos, that lives in you, as you, and through you, that never was, is, or will be ever again in the history of Earth, and that therefore you have the ability to address a dimension of unlove in the world, capital UN, unlove in a way that no other being that ever was, is, or will be can possibly address. That's a big deal. Right? I call that unique self. What unique self means is unique self is not the typology of your ego, although that's fun. It's not your Myers-Briggs test, although Cameron's doing an awesome job right, on Myers-Briggs tests, which are important and a great tool. That's not what it is. Right? It's not what it is. It's not your Enneagram type. Your Enneagram is who you're not. You get that? Your Enneagram type is the nature of your ego's fixation. Right? That's what it is. So your Enneagram type tells you who you're not who you are. Right? Your ego fixates in a particular way, what Oscar Achaza called attention fixation. Oscar Achaza was the dude who kind of basically brought the Enneagram to the world based on 2 passages in Gurdjieff. Right? And the Enneagram tells you, oh, your ego fixated at a 9 with a 3 wing. Oh, that's the fixation of my, that's not who I am. That's who I'm not. You get that? So unique self is not the typology of your ego. It's not a Myers-Briggs test. It's not an Enneagram. Unique self is, right, it's not a function of conditioning. Ever know what I mean when I say that word? Yes. Conditioning is the stuff you go through in the world of the relative. Right? That's not where uniqueness lives. Uniqueness is a function of essence. It's the irreducible quality of essence that lives in you, as you, and through you. It is the irreducible quality of love that initiated the entire process. Have you ever hung out on a street late at night and seen some quarks hanging out? Has that ever happened to you? You're just kind of hanging out, like in the Castro, there's a couple of quarks. Has it ever happened to you? Did that ever happen to you? It happens sometimes, okay? Then the quarks are kind of like, they get a little lonely, right? And they say, wow, let's hang together. Then a single boundary falls around them, and the quarks become what do they become? What do they become, anybody? An atom. An atom, not as an Adam and Eve. They become an atom. Right, then what happens? You're still in the Castro. The atoms are hanging out. Now here we go. Let's start stepping in now. We're now beginning. Okay? We're now done with introduction. Let's begin. The atoms are hanging out. The atoms all of a sudden come together. What draws them together? Anybody? What draws them together? Anybody?
Electromagnetic forces.
Well, there's 4 forces in the world, but we don't. That just describes what happens. But what's the interior essence that draws them together? How does it happen? Why is there the strong and the weak? Why is there electromagnetic? Why is there attraction? So there's an eros in the cosmos. What in the Santa Fe Institute they called the 5th force of the universe. Right? Santa Fe Institute, mid-80s, chaos theory. Right? The 5th force of the universe. Right? An animating eros, right? Which says that there's this force of mutuality, recognition, union, and embrace. Stay with it now. Mutuality, recognition, union, and embrace that moves through the cosmos and creates that. What is that? That's love by any other name. Love by any other name. Right? And that's evolution is love in action. Right? Evolution's a fact. Neo-Darwinism, chance, no chance. It's one of the silliest dogmas, right, that kind of exists, right, around. Darwin was right. Neo-Darwinism fucked up big time. Right? The notion that we went from dirt to Shakespeare by chance, don't think so. Right? Don't think so. No, I don't think so.
It was a lucky roll.
Right? It was a lucky roll. We were rolling the dice there. And the reason everyone kind of insists on that is because the creationists come and say, no, it wasn't chance, it was the ethnocentric homophobic John. So Richard Dawkins says, well, I'll stay with chance. I get that. I'm with Dawkins. Right? But that's not the only possibility. Right? The better possibility is, or the only possibility is, that the universe is intelligent. There's an intelligent eros, right, moving the cosmos. And it moves quarks to become atoms. And atoms to become molecules. And then molecules to become, right, cells. And then cells become multicellular. And actually all the way up the evolutionary chain, you have this movement of eros, which is moving to higher and higher levels of mutuality, recognition, union, and embrace. And it is the core quality of the cosmos that actually animates all that is. That's pretty shocking. That's a big deal, okay? So let's kind of stay with this for a second. So when I awaken and I am lived as love, meaning when that eros that moves quarks to become atoms, atoms to become molecules, molecules to become cells, awakens in me in first person, and I am lived as love, and I recognize that I am ultimately unique. 13.7 billion years created Brian. Singular, unique. Right? Singular that has no plural. Right? It took an incredible, right, set of synchronicities, right, to create that unique, irreducible expression of God having a Brian experience. And there's nothing in the world that Jennifer or Goffney or Wendy or Tanya can do, right, to be the unique expression of love intelligence that's Brian. No one can do it. The only way that that love is going to enter the world, right, is through that cosmic force which is Brianing. It's utterly irreducibly, right? That's God in first person, right? That's love in first person. Now, watch for a second. Here's where it's going to get a little wild, okay? So that means that if I'm a unique self, meaning I'm a unique incarnation of love essence, love beauty, love intelligence, that never was, is, or will be, that can address a dimension of unlove in the world that no one in the world can address by me, but me. So what does that mean? What does that create in its wake? What does that create in its wake? Anyone?
Not you. Obligation.
Creates obligation. Creates obligation. I just want you to hear that for a second, because obligation is one of the less popular words in this city. Okay, because it's been hijacked by fundamentalism. You get it? But actually, everyone in this room actually experiences obligation. We just give it a different name. And we don't like the word obligation because it kind of makes us cringe, because it reminds us of all the stuff that we spend years of therapy getting out of. Right? Parents, culture, religion. Fuck that. That's not obligation. I don't know what that is. The Hebrew word for obligation is chovah, which means love. Isn't that kind of shocking? The actual word in the original Hebrew and Aramaic for obligation is love. So what is obligation? It is the unique expression of love, intelligence, and love, beauty that moves in you, as you, and through, that can respond to the world in a way that no one else but you can respond. That creates obligation. I want to actually bring back, as we're participating together this evening in the evolution of love, I want to bring back the notion of obligation, not at a mythic level of consciousness, but at a kind of second tier, radically evolved consciousness, right? Love as obligation. So here's the scene. Ready? Here's the scene. We're going to do this scene, then we're going to go to kind of some music, and we're going to go to a practice. But here's the scene. And I want to talk to you about the scene together. I want to have a conversation about it. Here's the scene. You're on an island. With me on the island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. You're there with Mother Teresa. Okay, so far so good?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you something about Mother Teresa, which is between us. Okay? She was a bitch. She's like horrible. She had 3 biographies written about her. One's worse than the next. Now, she was saintly, by the way. I mean, she did a lot of good shit in the world. Right? But you don't actually create an order out of the Vatican, right, independently by being sweet. Right? She was not sweet. I mean, at all. Each biography is worse than the other one. I mean, so you're there, you're shipwrecked. And you're there with Mother Teresa, and you're never getting off of that island. Okay? You got that? That's our situation. Everyone on the island with me? Okay, you've been there for 10 years. She's driving you out of your mind. You want to die. If you had a fork that would kill you, you would kill yourself. If you don't have a fork, right? You just want to die. This is so bad. And by the way, people, if there's anyone here related to Mother Teresa, I love her too. So if you feel that kind of urge to defend her, let it go, okay? Work it out with your therapist. It's fine. She's cool with this. I've talked to her about it, okay? But I've been using her as an example the last couple of years. We had a little conversation, and she was cool, okay? But you're with her on the island, okay? She's driving you fucking crazy. I mean, like, can you imagine? I mean, 10 years, there's no one else to talk to. You're never going to get off the island, right? Literally, the first thing, you say something, she says something, and she just looks like your mother, right? She sounds like your mother on a really bad day. And you hear her every day, 365 days a year for a decade. And then a trunk washes off onto shore from your shipwreck, which happens to have scuba diving equipment. Could happen, maybe, sort of, okay? Right? Now, just by the way, here's a parenthesis. People think that, like, really enlightened Dharma, you've got to sit back. Here's how you're supposed to do it. Sit back and go like this. The river moves. Fuck that, man. Okay, let's have fun. Okay, ready? So good, you ready with me? So here we go, okay? So you got scuba diving equipment. You with me? Scuba diving equipment. There it is. Now, you and Mother Teresa get dressed in your scuba diving equipment, and you go scuba diving because you got nothing else to do on the island. She kind of gets locked in the coral reef. She breaks both arms. You happen to be a doctor, which is nice, right? You know, Mr. and Mrs. Goldstein announced the birth of their son, Dr. Goldstein. So there you are on the island, right? And right? And you set her 2 hands in a cast. So they're set like this, okay? So she can't eat. With me? She can't eat. Okay, now there's lots of food in the island, but she can't feed herself. It's kind of funny, huh? So do you or don't you have an obligation to feed her? That's my question. Yes. Obviously, right? Like, why are you asking such a stupid question? Yeah, like, of course. But I was just up at Exeter, which is the leading private school in America, I asked this question, there was almost a rebellion in the room. The brightest kids in America, right? No one in the room virtually would actually say there's an obligation. Kind of shocking. Kind of shocking, right? Because it was a wild scene. And the lead teacher who was there actually just wrote about it in the last newspaper of the extra year. Right? Because actually, we've inherited some sense of obligation, but actually we're not transmitting values that create obligation. It was a shocking moment. It was like 3 weeks ago. So you say yes. Everyone in the room agree? How many people agree that there's an obligation? You with me? Good. You're like just kind of sort of not yes? Obligation? You're good? I'm sorry. It's okay. Pass her some tea. It's fine. Okay, so we're good. So you're fine. Okay, so good. So we agree there's an obligation. Now stay with me. Why? Why? Why is there an obligation? So you can't just say there's an obligation, because if you just say there's an obligation, then the kids in Exeter are going to say fuck you. You get that? Right? Actually, I went afterwards. I went to Stuyvesant. I went to Bronx Science. I did a little tour, kind of the best schools in the country. No one thought there was an obligation. Why? Because we just say yes, but we're not sure why. Why? You tell me why.
I don't think I'd be able to not. Like, thinking about it in my mind, if I didn't like her, and then I...
No, you hate her.
So let's say I hate her.
Hate her!
Like,
Let me feel some hatred here.
I hate her.
The guy's so not a hater.
Like, imagining sitting there and watching her starve, I could maybe...
Put her on the other end of the island, man. It's a big island, man. Just relax. Just take her for a walk and just leave. Couldn't do it. Okay, but that's not obligation. You see, that's exactly what we're driving at. That just can't do it. So you're a wimp. What can we do? Right? You follow what I'm saying, though? Right? The issue is not can you do it. The issue is can you formulate. We want to participate in the evolution of love. So we want to formulate something that's beyond our own ability to feel it. Right, so we've got to be able to formulate something. We need to weave a narrative. You begin to see what I mean? What's the narrative here? What's the story here? Okay, so why is there an obligation? I thought about this for a decade. Okay, it's a big question. All right, so here we go. Ready? One, there's a need. Everyone agree there's a need? Mm-hmm. Good. Two, it's a legitimate need. Everyone agree to that? Three, you recognize the need. Cool? Good. Four, you have the capacity to meet the need. Good? Everyone got that? Mm-hmm. And five, you are the only person in the entire world, whoever was, is, or will be, who can meet that need. Fivefold doctrine of obligation. New narrative. That's wild. And I just sat with a woman at Harvard Divinity School who said, there's no basis for moral obligation. I just did a phone call this morning with some mutual friends of ours, right, and Dave started the phone call by saying, no basis for moral obligation. Not true. Not true. There is. We just articulated, right, a postmodern, right, philosophy of obligation. There's a need. It's a legitimate need. You recognize the need. You have the capacity to meet the need, and you're the only person that ever was, is, or will be in this moment who can meet that need. Now, when you awaken as unique self, as an outrageous lover, right, as an irreducibly unique incarnation of the love intelligence and love beauty of all that is, what you actually live as your enlightened state, your actual consciousness knows, when you wake up in the morning, you know that there's something you can do in that day which will meet a unique need in the circle that you live in that no one else but you that ever was, is, or will be, right, can meet in the way you can meet it. And the actual consciousness of the enlightened person is not Om. It's not oneness. It's not merging with all that is. That's true self. That's level one. But then your true self awakens as unique self, and you actually realize, right, there's a need that I can address. There's a corner of unlove that can be healed and transformed by me in a way that no one that ever was, is, or will be can do it, and that is my obligation, which is why the original Aramaic Hebrew word for love and obligation are the same. That it is the expression of love intelligence that can only live through me. So that's love in first person. That's to be lived as love. So I want to invite you to that phrase, loose translation from the Aramaic, right? Comes also Kashmir Shaivite text, Adida, love the phrase. Right? To be lived as love. That's a wild thing, right? I'm not loving. I'm not in a love relationship. I'm being lived as love, right? Love is living as me, and love can't find its way without me. And I'm obligated. And if I don't do it, I'm going to throw something at you that's going to make you like shoot me. But that's okay. I got a bulletproof vest. That's why I wore it. Okay? And if you don't do it, you're a fucking sinner. I want to put that word back in the room. Okay? Right? Right? As Thomas Carlyle said, Socrates is terribly at ease in Zion. So we associate sin as someone told you that when you were 15 years old, masturbating, that was a sin. So we rebelled against that correctly. Right? We were correct in throwing off that dogma. Right? Because actually they told us all sorts of things were sins that obviously weren't, that actually paralyzed us, disembodied us, right? Caused us to reject essential parts of ourselves and created pathology after pathology. So we threw that off. But we forgot that there is an idea called sin. And sin means chait in Hebrew. You missed it. You missed the fucking mark. You blew it. Right? As Rumi said, right? If you live your life and you fulfill everything other than that which you're here to fulfill, you wasted your life. See, we can quote Rumi. Okay? Right? There you go. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And we actually refuse to confront the possibility of sin. It's just so out of style. It's just so inappropriate to even talk about sin. Who talks about sin these days? Jimmy Swaggart. But what we've done is we've let the right-wing fundamentalist world hijack sin. What sin means is that I'm valuable, that my life matters. Did fundamentalist world hijack and distort the idea of sin? Of course it did. Right? Did they create a homophobic, ethnocentric reality? Of course it did. Do we need to reject that in total? Of course we do. Of course we do. But then what we need to do is articulate a liberal, progressive, post-conventional vision in which we actually experience our obligation as radical, outrageous lovers. Because we live in a world of outrageous pain. And the only response to outrageous pain is outrageous love. And if we dabble in love, you get what I mean by that? Right? We dabble in love. Right? But we don't actually experience ourselves as radically confronted, radically obligated. There's something that I can do that no one else can do but me. And I can shift something. I can move something. Okay? Anyone here ever seen slime mold? Just a little slime mold kind of. Yeah? There's a yes. I know people kind of walking in the forest have seen slime mold. Anybody? Anyone ever seen an ant colony? Let's make it easier. Ant colony? Got some ant colony people? Okay. Good. You guys ever heard of the Turing Test? The Turing Test in computers? Anyone Turing Test? Any computer people here? Okay, Turing, guy named Turing, super cool guy, right? In World War II, cracked the Nazi codes. The most brilliant mathematician of the last God knows how long. Right? Died in 1954 after he was arrested for homosexuality in Great Britain, and the wonderful British started giving him estrogen treatment, and he committed suicide. Probably the most brilliant mind in mathematics. I mean, the guy was beyond. So I was reading his paper about a week ago called Morphogenesis. And he talks about something, a word that you've all heard of, called self-organizing systems. So how does an anthill work? How does an anthill work? Anyone know? Anthills are like wildly complex. You know how slime molds work? Slime molds, they kind of look like your dog threw up, you know? But if you actually take pictures of slime mold and you track it across the forest floor, what you'll realize is there's a slime mold, which is a kind of being, and then it'll disappear. But if you track it, what happens is all the cells go in different places. They somehow know how to do that. And then somehow they all come back together, reassemble, become a slime mold swarm again, keep moving along, and then they stop, and they all go different places, and they come back together. That's when an anthill works. That's how our body works. It's self-organizing. What does self-organizing mean? It means there's not a fiat God who says, let it happen. It means that actually each one of us has an outrageous act of love to commit. In a self-organizing world where there's a unique self-symphony, we can actually solve every fucking problem in the world. We can feed every mouth. We can liberate every slave. We can shift all injustice. We can break every fetter of poverty if every person lives their unique self. And it's not a top-down model. It's a complete bottom-up model. And all it requires is I actually liberate myself from ego, little minor thing, right? And I enter into awakened, unique self-consciousness. And I actually say I'm going to be lived as love, and I'm obligated. I'm obligated. And actually, right, we actually are willing to embrace that word and liberate it from the places that it's been hijacked.